I was moving my mom from my hometown down to be
Mhm.
close to me. They asked me right away, "Who's your mother's doctor? What
Yeah.
hospital do you want to be near?" And I kind of
Mhm.
I felt like, gee, is there a difference? She doesn't have one yet. And
Yeah.
so therein lies this scenario of what are the things that families need to know?
With my grandmother being in Washington State or my grandpa now being in
Yeah,
San Antonio, Texas.
my good.
And so a platform like Senior Carefinder can help,
Mhm.
right? And using and leveraging those virtual tours, looking and reading at consumer reviews, those help you.
Mhm. They do.
And a site like Senior Carefinder can also give you the tools to filter down, to be able to narrow down your search, find the top priorities that your loved one needs, and then also arm you with those questions to ask.
Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show.
And welcome back, everyone, to Answers for Elders Radio Network. And we are here with CEO Christie Stukenholtz from SeniorCarefinder.com. And for those of you listening that are in that process of later life or caring for someone, this is a very important conversation to listen to. And Christie, you and I have been talking about the need for families, what's been going on in the industry, and so often we don't prepare in advance what happens. There's a crisis. There's a
Mm-hmm.
crossroads. We come to a scenario where we are all of a sudden, feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to take care of something, but I'm not prepared to do that. What are the first steps that families should take in that process if there is a crisis?
Well, ideally, we can get ahead of it a little bit, right? And
We
start
would
the
love that, right?
conversation. Yeah. So that's always my first piece of advice is if you don't think you need to have the conversation, it's the perfect time to start the conversation,
Mhm.
right? Because nobody wants to be a burden, but
No.
people have wishes and they have desires of how they would like to spend their days, and that matters. And so I
Right.
think, as soon as you can start the conversation, the better.
Very true.
But secondly, really understanding, as in relation to your loved one, is what are their non-negotiables? I like to think about like what are their most important things that if nothing else matters, they need a place that's pet friendly, or they need a place that is in close distance to family
Hmm.
so that they can come
Right.
visit, or they need a private room.
Hmm.
All of those things, something is at the top of that list. And
Right.
so having that conversation will help you, if you're a family member helping, research and do the navigating, will help you prioritize and get really clear on what places might be the best fit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you think about it again, it goes back to that scenario of if I'm going to tour a community, what do I even need to know first? What are some
Mm-hmm.
questions I'm going to be asked? Because I remember feeling off guard. Some of the questions they asked me, I wasn't prepared to answer them because I was moving my mom from my hometown down to be
Mm-hmm.
close to me. They asked me right away, "Who's your mother's doctor? What
Yeah.
hospital do you want to be near?" And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, gee, is there a difference? She doesn't have one yet. And
Yeah.
so therein lies this scenario of what are the things that families need to know? And
Mm-hmm.
certainly with you providing a resource along with us, we can give families the information that they need to know before this
Yes.
ever comes to a scenario. And also, you came from another state.
Right.
How did
Which
that
changes the
work?
game entirely, right?
Yeah,
Um,
how did
I,
that
I
work?
I often think about, I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska, a big small town. And if one of my grandparents lived here, which none of them do, but if they did, I I think I would have people that I could pick up the phone
Mhm.
that have either been through the process or maybe work in the industry and say, "Where's great? Can you please help me, guide
Mhm.
me?" But I didn't have that luxury
No.
with my grandmother being in Washington State or my grandpa now being in
Yeah.
San Antonio, Texas.
My good.
And so a platform like Senior Carefinder can help,
Mhm.
right? And using and leveraging those virtual tours, looking and reading at consumer reviews, those help you.
Mhm. They do.
And a site like Senior Carefinder can also give you the tools to filter down, to be able to narrow down your search, find the top priorities that your loved one needs, and then also arm you with those questions to ask and, things to look for and the information that you probably don't even know you need as you start to embark on this experience.
Well, and what you're talking about is so valuable because how many families today live out of state? They're trying to help a parent or a loved one, or trying to figure out, I'm going to relocate with my daughter to be close to my daughter or son. Now you're in a situation where I don't even know where to begin to find, maybe an independent type, CCRC or, life care community or something like that where I can live independently. Because again, seniors do not want to burden their children.
Yes.
And so finding that type of resource that you can go online and learn a little bit about what's in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have any clue. I live in Seattle.
Right. Well, and even living here, right? Yeah. I drive by the same 5, on my route, but I didn't know that there was actually 87 different options. And so really being able to get a handle on, what you're working with, I think is valuable.
Yeah.
And in a way that, you spoke, Suzanne, to your first initial experience in a way that doesn't feel yucky. And when you get to our platform, we don't ask for anything. So you can search, you can do all the research you want, and people start that process early. We know that. And so we want to be a tool and a resource that meets people where they are without then turning around and kind of selling them as a lead, and then their phone is blowing up and then you don't even know what just happened.
Right. And it's interesting that you're bringing this up because I remember distinctly when I first started caregiving, I was thinking about what would be most important to me as a daughter, right? I wasn't necessarily in the mindset of how can I best serve my mom? And I had to learn through time to become her advocate, not her caregiver. And that meant me making a mind shift of, what's most important to mom? Was not necessarily what would be important to me. What would be important is, I think mom should be in this beautiful community. And there's a fountain in the lobby. And there's all this fancy stuff here. Oh, she could live first class. Guess what? Mom wanted to wear sweatpants. My mother wasn't, a dresser-upper person. She didn't want to be, in a really posh place. She wanted to feel comfortable. And I had to learn to, bring back my expectations on a lot of the stuff that I would have noticed. Right. Yeah. And that's something I think that you're finding, is it not?
Yes. So we are in a very unique position in our industry in that we have a tremendous amount of data and insights and information about that consumer searching. And sometimes that consumer searching is the person that needs the care. Sometimes it's what they call the adult child influencer. And to be honest, more often than not, it's the adult grandchild influencer. And all of those different groups of people have different motivations and needs and things that they're looking for. And so we've been able to really study those groups of people. Of course, the adult child or grandchild influencer is often looking at safety is a really big deal. Whereas if it's the person searching, they're just exploring their options. But we know, the two things that are in common with those groups are cost and location. Of course, they matter when you're searching, especially, across the nation. So.
Right. And so if someone goes on to Senior Carefinder, they're going to go into a search box, they're going to put their information in. Is that correct?
Yes, we try to design the platform in a way that's very intuitive and comfortable and familiar. So you can go do a search like you would anywhere else, search your zip code. You can use the filters like you would anywhere else for the things that are important. And then when you contact a provider on our platform, your contact message goes directly to the provider. There's no one in the middle intercepting that. And they should be getting in touch with you, we hope, quickly.
Yeah. And to access this very powerful resource, you can go to seniorcarefinder.com, type in your zip code, and Christie and I, we're going to be right back right after this. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.